Hey guys, it's Marquez from the MKBHD YouTube channel for DroidDog.com, here with our final video review of the HTC Thunderbolt, the first 4G LTE phone on the Verizon Wireless network. In this video review, we'll hopefully give you a pretty good idea of what it's like to be an owner of this phone and to use it, and help you decide whether or not you want to buy this device. So taking a brief tour of the hardware, on the left hand side is the USB charging port. On the bottom there's just the microphone. The right hand side contains your volume rocker, and on the top is your power button and your 3.5mm headphone jack. Now around about the back of the device is pretty characteristic of HTC, with the speakerphone behind the kickstand, and up at the top is your 8-megapixel camera with dual LED flash. Around the front of the device is a 4.3-inch Super LCD display, a good job by HTC with that 480 by 800 resolution, and at the bottom are your 4 Android touch-sensitive buttons. Now the entire hardware profile of the device is made of mostly plastic except for that kickstand and the glass of the screen, and it's overall not very thin, but it's still a really pocketable phone. The plastic back cover of the Thunderbolt is easily removable, of course, thanks to that notch at the top, and it's actually not the whole back of the phone, just the top portion. Removing that back cover reveals the relatively small 1400 mAh battery, and I'll get to the battery life pretty quickly, and also reveals the LTE SIM card tray found only in the Verizon Wireless 4G offerings. Now the most impressive piece of this roundabout piece of great hardware is the screen, as a matter of fact. Now the 1 GHz processor does power this baby really well and ends up giving a really nice, very responsive, very fluid experience. Now Sense 2.0 doesn't hurt that at all as well, so as you can see, switching between home screens is really smooth and the capacitive display is really nice. The 768 megabytes of RAM in the internals also make it great for opening and using multiple applications at once, and overall I didn't really find any hitches or crashes with my experience with Sense 2.0 on the Thunderbolt. It is running Android 2.2 as its main framework, which isn't a problem unless you really like to be on top the first ones with updates, which in that case you probably don't want to look at a skinned version of Android. Now the first and only other SenseUI device I've used before this was the Incredible, and quite frankly I wasn't that impressed, but Sense 2.0 has come a long way in terms of customization, and as you can see here there's a really large amount of things you can do to customize this phone to make it your own. So even if you aren't running stock Android, you really do have a lot of options to make this phone whatever you want it to be. Now having come from an original Droid, it's actually a pretty nice blend of stock Android features and all the Google things that come with your phone, plus the things that HTC decides to add. It's not really removing anything you'd get with a pure Google experience phone. Now I also didn't like the original look of Sense, so I was pleased to find that HTC does include a number of skins included on the phone with Sense 2.0, so I like that little slate theme. You can change it back and forth between whatever you want, and it'll change the look of the app drawer, the notification tray, and your widgets, etc. And Sense 2.0 also comes with something called Scenes, which allows you to change not just the look of the phone, but actually change what's on your home screens, including the icons and the widgets, based off of where you are or what time of day it is. There aren't a whole ton of pre-installed applications, or what I like to call bloatware, on the Thunderbolt, which is a good thing, but there are a whole bunch of additions, like I said, made by HTC. But they did include a copy of Let's Golf 2. Interesting. Well anyway, the major selling point of this device is its 4G capabilities, and I happen to live in an area with excellent 4G coverage from Verizon Wireless, so what better way to show that off by giving you guys a speed test. Well, hate to break it to you, but needless to say, the HTC Thunderbolt was no slouch on Verizon 4G. In fact, it was lightning fast, no pun intended. Honestly, this phone was faster than my home Wi-Fi network, which is a high bandwidth wireless N, so this was really impressive, and it's nice that you can use this as a wireless hotspot for up to 8 devices, and as a bonus, you can do all this without dropping your call, because you can use both voice and data at the same time, finally, on the HTC Thunderbolt. This is an awesome and really fast device. Another great way to demonstrate the really high wireless speeds of the 4G LTE network is to stream an HD YouTube video from the DroidDog YouTube channel with full bars of 4G LTE service. And of course, as you can anticipate, it is really fast, flawless, smooth playback performance, and by the way, it looks great on the Thunderbolt's 4.3-inch screen. Now, some may wonder, would you ever use the embedded YouTube video player on websites now that there's Flash 10.2 available for Android? Yes, the fact is you actually can, but with a single core 1 GHz processor, it's not quite as powerful as it could be, and you may find some performance issues with, certain services. So I'd actually recommend using the stock built-in YouTube player for Android. It's really good. Now, we haven't spoken much about the cameras on the Thunderbolt, and that's because they're not exactly noteworthy, but it is worth telling you guys that the front-facing camera is pretty convenient to have. But there are some pretty cool effects, that HTC does include overlaid on top of the camera function. The back-facing camera is 8 megapixels, capable of taking 720p video, and the front-facing camera is actually 1.3 megapixels. So here comes the burning question, and probably the reason you guys have watched this video. Is the HTC Thunderbolt worth the price, and is it the phone for you? Well, there are a couple things the Thunderbolt does really well, and a couple of things it really lacks on. The things it does really well include media, which is streaming video and wireless sync and all sorts of wireless things over the 4G LTE network. It does those things extremely well because it's so fast. Sense 2.0 also offers a lot of customization, but also doesn't offer a lot of flexibility for the hackers and tweakers among a lot of us. The thing that the HTC Thunderbolt doesn't do very well is, unfortunately, the battery life, which was absolutely pitiful from my experience. In fact, having the 4G radio on all the time, which you definitely don't want to do, can reduce your battery life to under 6 hours, which is really bad. So basically, if you're looking for a phone for a moderate to light user of Android who's looking to get the best media experience, someone who watches YouTube videos and emails a lot, things like that, they're really going to enjoy this phone. They won't need a dual-core processor, and they'll enjoy the Thunderbolt. Please subscribe if you enjoyed. MKBHD, signing out. Peace.